Welcome to Gracefully Graying live stream. Gracefully Graying is a startup to connect you to resources and information about growing older and for assisting your loved ones. We provide articles, interviews, checklists, and other tips to create a productive and vibrant life. We also have many resources for people moving into later life stages and how they can be helped by those around them. You can find us on gracefullygraying.com and social media platforms. So now enjoy the live stream Gracefully Graying show.
Hi, welcome to Gracefully Graying. I'm Pam Lippitt, and I'm going to be running our interview today, our Tuesday morning interview, though you may be watching it at any time in the future, and that's great too. If you're watching it in live time or in the future, please put comments below. We will make sure that we get back to you with all the answers. It is my pleasure today to welcome someone I have known for a good number of years now, Michigan State Senator Jeremy Moss. So welcome, Jeremy.
Pam, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
So I was going to ask you if it's okay to call you Jeremy, but you have been my legislator for probably 6 years now?
Yeah, 6 or 8 years, depending on where my district's been.
Right. So that's a great way to start. So I'm pretty politically involved, and so I understand the importance of knowing the legislators at the state level. So Jeremy's going to be talking to us today in broader terms about how to connect with the people in your state. And then we have some specific questions about seniors so that we can share with our community some more details about what's important coming up on the docket. So tell us about why you like connecting with your constituents.
Well, thanks, Pam. I appreciate it. And that's what it's all about to me. I mean, so we look at our elected officials sometimes as untouchable, that, we see them on Twitter or we see them making speeches in the state capitol or U.S. Capitol. But the reality is we're neighbors too. We live in the community. The decisions we make impact us. The challenges that we face in our neighborhoods impact us as well. And so, I'm just a neighborhood guy who my neighbors decided to send to the Michigan State Senate to advocate. And so the whole success of the job depends on me talking to people in the district and them telling me what their issues are and how I can best go about resolving them. And so a forum like this is really great to connect with those not only here in Michigan, but whoever watches the stream. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, we appreciate your carving out some time for us, because we know that things at the state levels are not exactly calm and easy these days.
Right, exactly.
No matter where you live. So while I'm interviewing someone who lives within a few miles of me and has represented me for so long, this is a lesson to anyone in the country. And I say, I don't want to put a hex on anything, but I say it's important to get to know your local representatives, because you never know who will be your national representatives in the future. And
That's true.
It's good to make a connection now. So not that I'm like poo and all that, but one day it would be lovely if you represented me in Washington as well.
We'll see.
A lot going on. So talk about the other legislators and a little bit about how the work gets done, so that we what we see as citizens from the work you do.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's the conflict that makes the excitement in the newspapers. So you hear a lot about the fighting and the bickering, and I'm not trying to downplay that. There's a lot of fighting and bickering, and you see it play out. But the reality is that, I think most of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle from both parties, their heart is in the right place. We just disagree on the approach. And so if we can talk to one another about, here's a problem that we see, here's a way that I think about fixing it, and then I can hear about what their way of fixing it is, hopefully we can meet in the middle and really solve problems. And we've had some great successes. I am a Democrat here in the Michigan Senate, And I'm in the minority. There are more Republicans than Democrats. But nevertheless, I've been able to get 8 bills signed into law on a bipartisan basis, touching just about everything from education to criminal justice reform to housing to supporting certain industries here in the state of Michigan. And that's, it's because of relationships. It's because of talking to people. It's because of finding our commonalities despite maybe our political differences. So there's a lot of stress out there. I don't want to downplay that, but there also is a lot of opportunities to get along and get some things done.
Well, sadly, I think sometimes it takes a crisis for people to put aside that like 5 or 10% that's the difference and come back together to the 80 or 90 or 95% that's the same.
That's exactly right. And don't get me wrong, there's some people I don't want to work with, but nevertheless, I find the ones that I can. That's right. That's right. But it's been enjoyable and rewarding, and I like to be the guy in the neighborhood that my neighbors can count on. If they have a problem, I'm there and working to solve those problems.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about a few things that specifically affect the senior community here in Michigan. So why don't we start with the retirement tax? Tell us a little bit about what's going on in Lansing and then how it affects us day to day, year to year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for those who are watching this from Michigan, the story of the retirement tax. About a decade ago, there was a big tax shift. Our former governor proposed some really generous tax breaks to our business community. And in order to keep the budget whole, implemented an income tax on people's pensions here in the state of Michigan. And we call that the retirement tax. People retired with a little bit of financial certainty of what their financial situation was going to be and made those determinations on when to retire. And that included what was the status of their pension. And so, this damaging retirement tax really affected people on a fixed income and those who depended on their money remaining whole while they enjoyed their retirement years. And so this led to an increased tax burden on people who have fixed resources. And so this is a very unpopular tax. I would not have supported it had I been in the legislature at the time. And since it's been implemented, we've been hearing from those who are distressed by it. So now it's kind of gotten to this point where there is this bipartisan call to repeal this tax that was implemented a decade ago, and rolling back this tax on retirement income and pensions could save 500,000 households $1,000 a year. And that's real money for people. That's real money for people to make sure that they live comfortably and that their needs are being met. So I am supporting the call from our governor, Whitmer, now who came into office after this tax was implemented before her time. And she's presented a budget that we're all going to be voting on that would repeal this retirement tax. And I'm a big proponent of that because I know that there have been some folks who've been hurt by it.
So, and the people who have probably been hurt by it the most is the people who $1,000 matter to the most.
Absolutely. It's a regressive tax. It hurts those at the lowest income scale the most. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help those with a fixed income who retired under certain conditions and then had the rug pulled out from under them because this tax was implemented as they were planning their retirement.
And when do you think that vote is going to come before? Is it like at the committee level or the full?
So this would all be a part of the big budget. The governor presented her proposal for a balanced budget in the state of Michigan, and that balanced budget included repealing this retirement tax. So we will now take that budget consideration in the legislature, and we have up until September 30th of this year to pass a balanced budget. I hope we do it much before that so that people can know what kind of money is coming out of the state government. But this year could be the year at long last we can set aside our partisan differences and really roll up our sleeves and work for folks and repeal this retirement tax.
And so if people are out there and they want to contact their legislators, maybe we'll put a link to the Michigan legislature below in the comments later. And do people call the offices? Do you email in? What's the best?
Absolutely. A call and email is always good. And then I can get you that link we can put in the comments section so that people can tell their legislators, please, this has been a disruptive tax that has disrupted the financial stability of my retirement. Please work in this budget to repeal it. And again, it was all Democrats that opposed it 10 years ago. So I will say that. But now we're coming on a decade of this tax being implemented, and Republicans have come on board to say this was not the right approach, and so this should be a bipartisan call to repeal this and give some relief to seniors in Michigan on a fixed income.
Well, that's really interesting. So the next topic that we had talked about in advance, so I'm not surprising you, is price gouging.
Yes. We're all dealing with it. No matter your age, we're all dealing with with high costs and some people trying to exploit all these crises around us and gouging us when we purchase our essential needs.
So what's happening in the legislature, and what do citizens do about this?
Yeah, well, Pam, I'll tell you a story. So probably about in 2017, I think, we had this massive windstorm in Michigan. And 1 million people in the state were knocked out of power. And it displaced some folks. They had to find motels and hotels to stay in. It was I think it was about February of 2017. And they needed to make sure they were safe and covered and warm and everything like that. And there was a motel in my district that usually has a neon sign that says $59 a night.
Oh, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, they turned off the neon sign. And there were reports that they were charging people of upwards of $400 a night to take advantage of a crisis. And so from that minute forward, I introduced legislation to strengthen our price gouging laws on housing, including hotels and motels, on essential goods, and on energy supplies, gasoline. I mean, we're all talking about now price gouging with that. And so 30 states have a price gouging law that protect their residents from dealing with these totally exorbitant fees and costs during a situation like this. And then Michigan has a price gouging law, but we don't have it triggered when a state of emergency comes to play. So we want to include Michigan in when there's a crisis, when there's a state of an emergency, we trigger our price gouging law. Now, I introduced this in 2017 as a state rep. Little did I know in 2020, we'd still be talking about price gouging during a state of emergency, the early part of the pandemic, when cleaning supplies and masks and toilet paper, remember when toilet paper was going crazy? We wanted to make sure that when there was a state of emergency, a crisis, our price gouging laws triggered, and we went after bad actors who tried to exploit vulnerable people and make a profit off of human misery. And now here we are in 2022 dealing with gas prices. It applies across the board.
So I always say with gas prices, when the prices go up, it's because of a crisis. When the prices don't go down, then the gas and oil companies say, well, we bought it 6 months ago. It was priced from that. And we're left in that valley, that deep valley in the middle. So what do seniors, and really this applies to everyone, do if they feel they've been price gouged or they see something that's amiss?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a price gouging law. My bill that I proposed would strengthen it during a state of emergency, but we do have a price gouging law. And our Attorney General Dana Nessel has really been on top of it, on top of consumer protection. So if you see something that's amiss, if you see something that due to the crisis in Ukraine, due to the pandemic, or due to just a windstorm that occurs, and you see that prices on an essential good or supply is out of whack, you can report it to the Michigan Attorney General's office, her Consumer Protection Bureau. And you can go to michigan.gov/AG to get all those phone numbers or report it online, and the Attorney General will investigate those claims. And I'm reintroducing my legislation to strengthen that price gouging law, specifically when there's a state of emergency.
So I heard two things that surprised me in this. One, you would think that during an emergency is when the trigger should start.
Right.
From the beginning. The other was when you said that 30 states have these laws, what I heard was 20 states don't have
right.
these laws.
And we're in the middle. So we have a price gouging law. So we're among the 30 states, but we're the only one of those 30 states that doesn't have an extra trigger during a state of emergency. So let's fill that gap. Let's catch us up to the other states that protect their seniors and their consumers.
You know, that leads us into prescription drugs, because those can also really, they say so many seniors go bankrupt because of medical bills.
Absolutely.
Prescriptions. So where do you think we're heading with that?
Well, the good news is that we've introduced legislation to take this on. A few years ago, I was part of a group of legislators that introduced basically a healthcare bill of rights. And it's a value statement. And among those statement of our values is that people should not be choosing between putting food on the table and paying for the cost of their medicine. And so just recently, I co-sponsored Senate legislation that would create a Michigan Prescription Drug Affordability Board. So this would create a 21-member advisory council to monitor those drug prices and ensure that there's transparency in the state's pharmaceutical industry. And I've also been supportive of legislation that would cap the copay of prescription insulin at a maximum of $50 for a 30-day supply. I think that is something that is just, those prices have gone so out of reach for the people that need it. And the governor even made this part of her call during her recent State of the State address. So we are really trying to rein in these costs, institute a new board that would monitor it, and then specifically with insulin, cap the price and make sure that those who depend on insulin for their day-to-day survival to be able to afford it.
Yeah, especially because Michigan is a border state, right?
Yeah.
Like it takes me less time to get to Canada than to get from the Metro Detroit area to Ann Arbor. So, we really see, I think, the differential. I was sick, I had like an arthritis-y kind of thing, a trigger thumb a few years ago. And when I went to the doctor, he said to me, "Do you go to Canada?" And I thought, am I getting like sick from something? I went in Canada. What he really meant to me, what he really was saying to me is there was something that is now here over the counter that was over the counter then, that he said, if you have someone in Canada, have them bring it, because you have to flunk 2 other prescriptions before I can give you this thing that will work.
Wow.
So it's really, I mean, luckily I, worked with people who lived in Canada, and I said, can you bring me a tube on Monday? So it worked out, but it's not how we should be treating people. So
absolutely not.
It's good to hear that those are the kind of things that are so important to the people who represent us. The last thing we said we would talk about is the home modification bills. And I have to be honest, I don't know much about this. So, though I could definitely modify my house a little. So tell me about what's going on with that and how that also affects our senior community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I live in Southfield, Michigan, and represent Southfield and other inner ring suburbs of Detroit. And actually in the 1960s, Southfield was Michigan's fastest growing community. And so our housing stock was new and everybody was moving to this community. And now here we are some 60 years later, and it's time to replenish our housing stock. And our housing stock was not built with modifications, with accessible amenities for people to age in place. This is a housing stock here in this community, mostly from the 60s. So we didn't think of things like no step entrances and other bathroom modifications and other things to allow people to age in place. You know, I think gone are the days where you reach a certain age and then you have to, the only other choice is to go to the nursing home. We want to make sure that people can live an independent lifestyle and can age gracefully, ties it into the name of this program, to in their own homes.
Yeah.
And so I have introduced legislation with the support of many of our senior advocacy groups that would provide a tax credit to those who either purchase a new residence or retrofit their existing residence to meet accessibility standards that are needed for those with physical limitations. And it would accommodate people wishing to age in place, people with other physical limitations, so that they can comfortably stay in their own home. We have a vibrant senior population in our district, and it's that financial burden that prevents them from being able to stay at home. And we want to lift that financial burden with a tax credit while they make those modifications.
So I have to say, this really speaks to me. My parents bought a home in Beacon Square in Southfield in 1967. So, you know, I mean, sadly, they're both gone. So we didn't have to do a lot of retrofitting, but we certainly put up grab bars and things like that.
Right.
I'm in condos that are converted from apartments. I love my condo, but I have to say, I can definitely see what you're saying in terms of there's no way any kind of wheelchair could fit through a door here. There's no way you could get in the shower here. When I had a broken foot, I said the biggest height in the world was jumping over that lip into the shower.
Sure.
Without being with one foot in the air and then doing a jump over. So,
and those are the exact type of modifications we're talking about. No step entrance, bathroom modifications. And those are the things that people have to make a determination. Am I going to be able to stay in my home, or do I have to find another place to live? And we want to give you some tax relief. If we repeal the pension tax and we give you a tax credit, we'd give people some relief to make some of these modifications.
I think I think we talk a lot here at Gracefully Graying about aging in place and what you have to do. So we have two demographies kind of in our group. We have those seniors who are looking at this information for themselves, but we have a lot of others, and you'll get into this age quicker than you think,
right?
Where you are helping older family members.
Absolutely.
And so knowing what's available and what's out there can make such a tremendous difference to people. I think this is really such an important conversation. So I have a question. I know that, look, I know you and I are on the same wavelength. We actually are friends. With all full disclosure,
absolutely,
we have regular conversations. What is the value of my writing to you or emailing when I know you agree with a position versus when I have a representative or legislator that doesn't agree with my position? Then I'm really kind of pushing them to change?
That's a really good question. I get it all the time. The reality is, regardless of your politics, the reality is I am a Democrat in a strong Democratic district. So, 9 times out of 10, when I'm talking to somebody about my views and issues, we're in sync with one another and my constituents. But it still helps me when I hear from constituents who agree with what I'm doing or want me to vote a certain way, and I am going to vote that way, because it gives me facts to deliver to my colleagues. I've heard from 100 people on my district on this issue. I've heard from 200 people who want me to oppose this. It helps me to make the case for the positions that I hold. And it also lets me know, what are certain stories I can share to compel my colleagues to find some space to maybe find some agreement on some of the issues that I'm pushing. Or make connections with those in other districts who might be feeling the same way. So reaching out to your legislature is very, very important when you want them to vote a certain way to represent you. If they disagree with you, it's very important to reach out. But if you agree with them, it's very important for us as legislators to carry that information from the district with us so that we can make the case for the votes that we take in the legislature.
So I just want to do a little aside for anyone watching. This is not a political a program as much as it is an informative program.
Correct.
Today, because it doesn't matter who your legislator is. We want you to have a relationship. We want you to know what goes on that affects you. And so we will probably, we will also welcome someone from the other side of the aisle. And I have a feeling the conversation will probably be very similar. And
absolutely.
That's what we want. So we talked about a little bit about the importance of reaching you. What is the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is always at my office. I have people who send me social media messages, and I'm always afraid I'm going to miss one of those. But the best way to reach me is at my office, and all of my information is on my website at senatormoss.com. Good with the graphic. And so, yes, and we host events. Obviously, we've been hosting them virtually over the last few years. And as the, knock on wood, hopefully this warmer weather is here to stay for a little bit longer. We are going to continue to do events throughout the district in person, and make use of our in-person events as well. And so we host coffee hours, town halls, and we look forward to seeing our constituents again in person. So yes, reach out to me at my office. All my contact information is there, but we're looking forward to seeing my constituents in person too.
Great. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person as
well. Likewise. It's been a while.
It's been a while. I think 2.5 years.
It's just about.
Just about. So I want to thank you for coming on our Gracefully Graying episode, our live stream today. I wish you luck. I wish you luck representing your constituents, because that is the most important thing. I want to remind everyone that you can find Gracefully Graying and then this is airing now on LinkedIn and on Facebook, but afterwards you'll also be able to find it on our YouTube channel. So check the links below, the comments below for links. Send us your questions. And I thank you, and we will see you all next Tuesday morning. Bye for now.
Thanks, Pam.